3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
Good afternoon, Vancouver. Hello, hello. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. My name is Giuseppe Ganci. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor. Hey, Darren, how's it going?
I'm good. Are you updated glitchy intro there?
Yeah. You know, just always some tech issues, especially when you're on live radio. So that's just the way it is. And we were off for a couple of weeks here. And welcome back to the show if you're catching our live shows. And if you're watching us on YouTube or SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever you capture your favorite replays on any streaming device, you know, hit subscribe and like and share and all that kind of stuff. If you're on YouTube, follow us as well. And just super grateful for all the people that have been listening to our show. Some for as long as 9 years we've been running, and hundreds of guests and thousands of listeners. So appreciate all of you out there. And it's good to be back. While we were away, we organized a gigantic conference in Alberta called the Alberta Recovery Conference, an extension of the Recovery Capital Conference. Darren, it was great. I mean, we had 1,300 people show up. I would say, well, no, I wouldn't say. I mean, we have the stats, about 700 people just from Indigenous health teams. Amazing. Which is really an important number because that to be able to host an event, and there was lots of collaboration with Indigenous health teams from all over Manitoba, British Columbia, Alberta, the Yukon were heavily there. It was just great. I mean, this is the addiction crisis, the overdose crisis is really affecting them, and overdose numbers are very high, and they're just questioning, you know, this, they like recovery oriented systems of care. I'm just going to say it. They don't really want their entire community on what Vancouver is pumping out about safe supply and so forth. And you know, what's the root cause of why addiction is taking place, and it was just a really magical 2 days. You know, a lot of dialogue, and you know, the Alberta model is what they're calling it. It's a Ross model. We had protesters show up.
No kidding.
I couldn't believe it. I just, like, they say they were protesting recovery, but they were, like, you know, it was just really remarkable.
What was the
here's the thing, like, okay, so there's this big harm reduction conference going on called Stimulus.
Okay.
They're charging $100,000 for sponsorship. I think $600 to register. Like, the sponsorship amounts are just absolutely insane. More expensive than the Alberta conference. And I'll tell you, a lot of people didn't even pay full price. There was a lot of, you know, people asking for discounts and all that kind of stuff. Pretty much zero profit. It was a break-even event. No, like, it was just like our conference was not even close to the financial impact. The stimulus conference in Ottawa that's taking place, and they're calling us profiteering off the recovery. But then they're like sharing stimulus as the place to go to learn. So really, you know, anything that has to do with recovery, they're going to find a hole, and it's greed, it's money, it's this, and well, then why are you promoting the stimulus conference? It's more expensive, and like, they're making way more bank than we did as last recovery society. So I mean, the people that were protesting are so out to lunch. And they said it was an anti-harm reduction conference. Well, they were talking about safe supply and medication, and no, it's an abstinence only conference. Well, no, it wasn't. We had like a bunch of panels on, like, I don't know any treatment center that doesn't offer Suboxone these days. I mean, it's not 1992 anymore, people. So I mean, it was just absolutely insane. People are being forced. No one gets forced to go to rehab anymore. I mean, we haven't had, where I work, when I started here, people were getting mandated to like abstinence only treatment. Now they're not. What these people actually have done is they've created this entire lucrative non-12 step market for places for people that don't want to go to 12-step meetings, which is great. They've just opened, I mean, it's $700-800 a day to go to some of these non-12-step programs, all based on what these people were protesting outside. So I mean, it's quite, I mean, everybody has a right to protest, but you can still call them dumb. I mean, they were then, oh, the best part, Darren, before we get into the show, then we had these people on Twitter like just being really mean. And then I just noticed one of the names. I was like, wait a minute, they're coming to the conference. We gave them free tickets. Okay. No word of a lie. They asked and we gave them free tickets way before all this protesting stuff came online, just to give them free tickets. We gave a bunch of people free tickets. And then they're dissing us on social media, saying this and that, and they're promoting the protest and protest this conference. So I call one of them and I'm like, hey, like, what's up? Like we're doing a lot of work. Like I'm in the office from like 7 a.m. to about 10 p.m. every day. And like you're dissing our conference. We gave you a free ticket, you and your friends. Like, are you gonna like scream in the conference? Like, what are you gonna do? And so then we talked. And she's like, are you pro safe supply? I said, yes. I mean, like, I think safe supply needs to happen for some people, not everybody. Like, I like the Swiss model. Are you against decrim? I'm like, no, we brought the entire Portuguese delegation all over Canada to talk about decrim. Like everything was just kind of solved. And at the end, she's like, I'm still protesting. And I'm like, okay, well, we're taking your tickets away. Like, you ain't like, this is real world, honey. Like you got invited to a conference and like you may be violent. And now you're like, we answer all your questions is still not good enough because they were protesting recovery. And, to the agencies that were involved in that, I'm not going to name them, like, shame on you. Like, just shame on you. Just shame on you. Just shame on you. Just shame on you. A bunch of articles on Twitter that just are completely insane. But what do you do? It's liable. Like that's just a waste of time. So I'm going to focus on the positive. 1,300 people learned about ROSC and it was amazing. So congratulations to everybody that was part of that conference. It was a lot of work and we're looking at going even bigger and larger and louder next year.
I'm not gonna comment on that. It's just funny.
Crazy.
We're just
crazy.
The human race are interesting people.
Free tickets, Darren.
Just even the sense of protest. Like, I don't know. You hire a professional soccer player to speak on something at an event. Being a part of a team or something like that, and you're gonna have people show up because the conference is anti-baseball. Yeah. Like, why can't you just let it be the conference that it is?
Yeah. Like we weren't like, if you can handle heroin and you can handle alcohol, by all means, go ahead. This was a conference for people where drugs and alcohol cause harm in their life and are asking to recover. Like they're protesting this. Like, which way does this camera go? Like this is Recovery Day last year. Like this is what they were protesting. Shame on you people for getting clean and sober. Like shame on you. Like stop it. You should all be on safe supply or you will die, according to Dr. Bonnie Henry Sutherland and Patricia Daly in Vancouver, because that's what they say. If you decide to get clean off of heroin, you will die. You need to be on medication for the rest of life. And those are quotes. I ain't making that shit up. So all these people in this picture need to get back on their meds because they're going to die. This one peer navigator for the BCCSU just celebrated 10 years clean. I'm not going to say his name, but we both know him. And I'm just like, you're 10 years clean. And yet your pathway to recovery is probably not going to happen because of the people that you promote on your Twitter and work with, because they're the ones that are saying, you, sir, are going to die. You need to go back on your meds. So we really need to take a look at this. Like, it's just absolutely insane that there was protests at our conference. But anyway, we're going to move on with our show. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. We come to you live, usually every Thursday, but sometimes we need a break, and we'll be doing shows consecutively till probably the summer now. And you can replay us. Go to talkrecoveryradio.com, find all your favorite restreaming devices on that page and all our past shows. And thanks for listening. And we're going to bring in our first guest today. And he's coming online right now as we look. There he is. That's and I got a bit of a cough, so that's actually the longest I've gone without coughing for a little while. So we'll see how it comes up. Hello, John.
Seppi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Here with Darren as well. Welcome to the show. John is a friend as well, somebody that I've known over the years, and is also on the show. He is part of a group on Facebook, Vancouver Break-ins and Crime Collective. Today's show is all about social disorder, I guess you could say. Just disclaimer, all of the social disorder in Vancouver is not just based on addiction, but it plays a part. And that's what we're going to talk about in this conversation here. John, tell us a little bit as to why did you start this group, by the way?
I did by
Okay.
accident.
By accident.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell us how that accident happened.
So this August will be a couple years ago. My front window was broken and I had a e-bike in there that I used for deliveries.
Oh, one second before you go on. Just so John owns a few businesses in downtown Vancouver. He was the first president of the downtown BIA.
Davie Village
Davie
BIA.
Street Village. So John has stake. He's got teeth in the game. He's a business owner that has had some damages done to his property. So go ahead, John. Just wanted to lay that down.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. And I've been working on Davie Street since 1977. And my father before me since 71, 72, when he opened his first restaurant. I was just a young lad back then. So anyway, my front window was broken. My e-bike was taken. And actually my daughter, I sent her a picture of it. She put it on, I believe, Twitter or Instagram. I can't remember. And it just went crazy. And I was getting phone calls from the media, which lasted, it's still going on, although it's diminished a little bit over the last few months, just about the crime and the window breakage that was going on in downtown. So then talking to a few friends, I started documenting, taking pictures of all the windows that were being broken downtown. And the former mayor, I was tagging him because he didn't seem to think, it was Kennedy Stewart, he didn't seem to think it was a problem. And it just kind of exploded from there. And then I just started a Facebook page with the help of my daughter and Vancouver Crime and Break-In Collective. And we've got over 1,100 members. And, we kind of keep each other informed of the latest crime and how to keep yourself safe.
So people say crime. I mean, it depends on where you're at in the political view of all this. I see on Twitter that crime hasn't gone up, addiction hasn't gone up, only overdoses has come up. Our friend Karen Ward says that all the time on Twitter. So I'm just wondering, like, so you're in the downtown area on Davie Street,
right?
And your lens, has crime gone up?
Yeah, absolutely, it has. I'm in constant contact with the VPD, and crime has gone up. A lot of it doesn't go report. I'll give you an example. My door window was broken, I guess about a week ago or 10 days ago. We have the video of it. Guy came in with a little metal baton, broke it. It didn't shatter. He tried to push it through. We've got film on the door, but I wasn't going to report it. And then I contacted my local VPD constable. He says, have you filed a report? I said no, and he reported, and he filed it for us. And a lot of people don't, because they don't see a use in it. And nothing has happened, nothing is changing, no one's being prosecuted, no one's being held responsible. I've had my front windows broken before, and they would have community courts, which I still believe they do, and the fellow, one time fellow paid the $800 or $900. But this is moved up a scale, and it's people who are just taking advantage of the system, knowing that, one, if they do get caught, they're going to get released, and two, they're not going to get caught because it's considered a no offense. So it's really hurt. The lady across the street, Abasa Optical, tiny lady, guy comes in, takes a bunch of glasses, says nothing you can do. One, she's a woman, she's working there by herself, and three, they're not going to prosecute the guy, or they're not going to make the guy, and there's no restitution. So he's right.
So now, you as you said, you've been there for a long time in that area. I mean, the Davie Village has always had its neighborhood issues and so forth, and over time, is it different? Like, what would your opinion be in regards to, is this a housing issue? Is this just crime? Is there addiction involved in here? You're there front line.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
There's a couple of things. One, there's the new Jim Diva Plaza at Butte and Davie. So they've closed it off. So I filed freedom of information to see how many times the police have been called there in the last 2 years. So before, cars used to be able to drive through 179 times. Police, I have the report somewhere here on my desk. 179 times the police have been called. I can tell you from talking to the merchants that are closer to Davie and Butte, there's never been 179 times in 10 years that the police have come there. So the city, in their do-goodness, have actually contributed to some of the ills that we have. Now, and I knew Jim Diva, by the way. I knew him since I was 16 or 17. Great guy, but he would not like to see that happening there. And then the maintenance of it is left to the Business Improvement Association. So the human feces, the trash that's being burnt, all the rest of that stuff is left to us under the city with, we're going to create a Butte Street Greenway. I get that, but it's perhaps not the best location for it. Secondly, the criminals look in the stores and they go, oh, there's a female working there. Are they working by themselves? I can take advantage of it. And that's what's happened. And this is a far cry from when people from Quebec come out, panhandle for a few weeks, go up to the Okanagan, work. This is a whole different dimension. There's, of course, mental issues, and then there's, mass amount of drug use. And no one seems to be doing anything about it.
So, I mean, we are seeing changes and increases in addiction, mental health, population in general. I have a vision of your dad, back in the day when, the streets were bustling and everybody knew each other, and, maybe he'd chase somebody away with a broom if they, he stole an apple or something like that. You know what I mean? And,
yeah. And
you would catch the guy and, give him a little smack, and, he'd let his dad know, kind of thing. You know what I mean? There was a community around it. And it sounds like that's almost being stripped away, as you described, just because you're a small woman business owner, now you're vulnerable. And the question is, like, who is to protect us? Who is to protect, these people? Is that where it kind of comes from, like wanting more accountability from police or the mayor, as far as
I think first of all, our premier, when he worked for Pivot Legal Society, has a lot to do with it. They changed the narrative because it's, they call it an act of poverty, or other names. At the end of the day, I've seen, a lot of poor people spoken to them. They never committed crimes like this. This is another level. There are people there, of course, you said, with mental issues, but they know they can get away with it because the law is on their side. And it seems that we are, whether you're a merchant or just walking down the street, you're a second or third class citizen now, and it's okay if you get assaulted. I mean, the last report was 4.2 random assaults a day in Vancouver. Yes, there's the mental issue. They, as you know, they closed Riverview years and years ago. I remember reading an article about Riverview, and the people that lived there had their own gardens. They were growing their fruits and vegetables and so on. And I remember going back and reading that article saying it was forced. Someone said it was forced labor. So that's the change of the narrative. You're abusing these people, forced labor. Well, yeah, not really. It gives them something to do in the day. They are safe. I'm going to give you an example. So I won't mention this person's name, etc. There is an individual that was very well known to the BIAs and all the police. This individual lived downtown on the street for about 8 years. And this individual, frontal cortex was gone. She'd have sex for money, poo in her pants, all that stuff. It took this one person I know 8 years to get this homeless, mentally incapable person a bed and to be safe at night. It cost $8 million between this individual going in and out of the hospital, getting arrested, getting assessed. $8 million. True story. Mm-hmm. So if you want to know where our system is broken down, there, it's right there. There's a classic example.
It's yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the decriminalization, attitudes, which is now, as you described, going into like vandalism is being decriminalized on Davie Street, and so many other types of assaults and more brazen sort of acts of violence and yep. crime. Like, I mean, it's always a cost-effective, sort of narrative that they're doing this. The time and the cost to, to charge and to bring somebody through the process. I mean, that's their defense, right? That's why there's a non-importance to the simple break of your window.
How's it working for us so far?
Right.
Not very well. Not very well. Let me give you three. Sorry to interrupt, Darren. Just 2 days ago, some guy with a sledgehammer broke $30,000 worth of glass on Granville Street. He actually came up Davie, broke 2 of the Tim Hortons windows and then the Starbucks windows. He was released. Where the progressives don't want to hold anyone responsible. Whomever does this, it's a victim. They're a victim of their circumstance. Well, I've been around the game a long time, and I see people that have come from not very good scenarios. And they do okay because they accept the responsibilities or responsibility for their actions. And we seem to have forgotten that. Another case in point, I was driving on South Granville Street, just by the old Howard Johnson, the SRO. Smaller pit bull escapes the owner's leash, attacks another dog. I have to come out and, anyway, long story short, help this poor lady who was walking with a stroller, and her little Scotty dog gets attacked by a pit bull. I mean, here's a dog, hasn't been neutered. I have to have a neutered dog. Why doesn't he? But anyway, nonetheless, the streets aren't as
so
safe.
just hold on. Here's a funded facility You know, an SRO is funded big time.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of money going through those doors.
Yeah.
You know, and there's, you know, supposed to be safety measures. So there's like if Last Door, this is what the show's, you know, hosted by Last Door, if we had an unneutered pit bull roaming around our building that got off a leash, like those, like, I mean, it would be Armageddon would hit Twitter. Fraser Health would be called by 50 haters. Like it would be the end of the world, you
Yeah.
know, and this SRO just gets to continue on doing what I know people that have been killed in SROs and they haven't even had an investigation,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
That-
it's kind of just like the, you know, victim of circumstance, you know, it's talk about stigma. It's like the worst, like you're so worthless that we're not going to even put any kind of human rules on you. So yeah, your
No
pit bull's good to
accountability.
go.
And that
Don't even
SRO,
worry about it
yeah.
because you're there's no value in your life. All you mean to
No.
me is a budget line for my services that I'm not even really doing.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is really funny because, you know, a lot of the advocates say that addiction treatment, like where we are, is unregulated. Everything's we don't do anything. We just sit around and, you know, throw big books at people or something like that. You know, but here's, you know, a harm reduction service that actually isn't regulated at all. And you don't see anybody, creating the stir they do for like things that, you know, we do
No.
with our recovery movement online. It's just, you know, it's unbelievable.
No.
So you have, you know, not so the reason why we really wanted to talk to you about this is number one, you're a person that's actually haven't been downtown for 6 weeks. You've been downtown for a really long time. You've seen the change, and yeah, the world changes. So I don't want to go into like, oh, we need to go back to where it was like in 1970 or, you know, but the world doesn't have to change in the direction that we're going to.
No.
And the other piece is you have lived experience. You have family members that have substance use issues. You know, you've been given an opportunity and a lens to actually see like what happens. And let's be clear, you had to pay for it because the funded system really wouldn't help you with what you needed. So if you want to share a little bit of like, what does it do when you actually have experience with people with addiction and recovery, substance use, and then you see all this hecticness going on downtown, which is really untreated illness?
I just shake my head because the solution I think is relatively obvious, but you know, you've got the OPS sites, which are a disaster, and it's basically open air drug use. They have the gangs selling drugs, you know, openly on the street, and there's just this whole disorder, and we keep talking about harm reduction, and it hasn't worked for us. So, you know, the road to insanity is doing things the same way and expecting different results. And I just shake my head at it, and I go, our leaders are supposed to have salient solutions, but you know, I guess the people that elected them are forcing them to, you know, think in an illogical way. I think the worst, Grant Denton, here's a great example. You know, Grant, we met Grant before.
Yeah, we met
right?
Grant. Yeah.
Yeah. So Grant, and he's done a TED Talk, and people who are listening to this can listen to his TED Talk. You know, he said, you know, the best idea when he was on the street for 9 years using heroin, and he woke up one morning with someone urinating in his face. And he said, you know, I've got to clean myself up. And he also was actually looking at federal time. So he had the chance to go into a rehab program. And now he helps people. He got clean, didn't have to do federal time. And now he helps people in Reno. But the point being is, you know, if you ask, this is an ex-heroin user telling me, and same with family members, is, you know, you go up to him and go, what do you need? Well, $20 so he can get the next hit. Mm-hmm. They don't have a clear brain. All they want to do is get that next hit. So asking them, you know, what they need is kind of counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I remember that same scenario when, you know, I was on my who knows how many relapses, and there I am, not knowing what to do, like nothing's helping. I still end up, in psychosis, and I've got maybe 24 hours of since my last use, and I go see this team. I had an appointment, and I mean, they were recovery friendly, but they were very harm reduction friendly. And one of them just looks at me as just like, you're very depressed right now, and this is, I don't remember everything really he said because it's been a long time now, but just went on the lines of like, what can we do for you to and the only thing I could think of was the only reason why I'm depressed is because I ran out of fucking money. Like, I shouldn't have swore, but it's such a pivotal moment in my life. I was just like, the only reason I'm here is because I have no more money and I need to figure out how to get more money. So like, sign off whatever you got to sign off so I can get some money. Like, I mean, this whole idea that we have to wait till people are ready, like, you know what I mean? And then I had a bunch of friends, push me, like, if you ever want to hang out with us again, you need to go to meetings, or if you want to, you know what I mean? Like, they kind of gave me some consequences, and I'm sure Darren remembers this is a while ago, and I wasn't ready. They were like, "Oh, yeah, everybody, I'm ready." It doesn't happen.
When we had to put a family member in there, my family member wasn't ready, but it's either, the reason why it's called the last door, because all the other doors of grandma and grandpa and friends are all locked. This is the last door. This is the last place. This is it. You're not allowed in the house, and you're not allowed in grandpa's house.
But this is really big because Lisa Lapointe is the chief coroner. All right, so I want to just point this out too. This is all this in the last 48 hours on social media. So according to organizations out there that are very heavy pro safe supply, I want to call them lobbyists, safe supply lobbyists, people that are dying from overdoses don't have addiction. They're just, partiers. And so that's why we need, safe supply in every 7-Eleven across British Columbia, or dispensaries, because people they're not addicts. And so Lisa Lapointe, in this one tweet says, not, and she doesn't say it, the articles say it, the reason, we researched everyone that overdosed, and hardly any of them have substance use disorder in their record files. And so Darren and I talked about this on our show. Well, the reality is when I was 30, I never went to therapy. I never asked my health authority for an assessment. But trust me, I was a clear addict. So if I would have died when I was 30, I'd be in those numbers that I wasn't an addict. I was just this recreational user of cocaine, ecstasy, and crack, and all that other stuff. But the reality is I was an addict. So that's the pitch that they're using on Tuesday to push safe supply. That these people really aren't addicts. They're just, it's an accident. And so that's why we need safe supply for all these people so they don't overdose. That's Tuesday.
It's an accident. It's an accident.
Now it's Thursday, and Lisa Lapointe's in the article saying that there's 100,000 people with substance use disorder in the province of British Columbia. There's no way that she's countering the money that they're acknowledging for recovery, because the BC government it wants to invest a bit more in recovery. Now they're saying there's no way we're going to be able to build treatment for all these people. So we need safe supply now, or so many people are going to die. And so I was interviewed by the media on that, and I was just like, well, like, what do you mean we can't? Like, why can't we? Like, this overdose crisis has been going on for like 6-7 years, and you're just figuring out now that we need treatment beds. Like, we need to get moving. Yes, like, right. And why can't we? When COVID hit, we were able to shut down the entire country, but for overdoses, let's just give them safe supply, another form of stigma. So it kind of shows like just how important it is to show that recovery services, access to services in this province is really the cause of this despair. Like, people get lost down there, and as you flirt with drugs, and then you get psychosis with drugs, you like, that just becomes normal behavior. Like, nobody just woke up one day and started living in Jim Diva Plaza defecating on the sidewalk. Like, it gradually happened.
Absolutely. Well, okay. When you said 100,000 people, we have to stop making BC a destination place for all of Canada's woes. I mean, we are a repository for anybody in Canada to get free anything. And so it's the old adage, build it and they will come. And we've built it and they've come. And, you know, I think we need to follow what Alberta's doing and Marshall Smith. You know, they're building these recovery centers, but you have to be a Alberta resident. We just can't take everybody from Canada. Even, yes, it's a free country, I get all that, but we just don't have the resource. We don't have the resources. You just don't have the manpower to do it. And so, you know, we've got to take a hard look at that. But I agree with, you know, I agree with you. Even Bonnie Henry says safe supply is the answer in an interview on.
She says it's the only answer now. Let's just throw her under the bus. She says any opiate addict cannot recover. They need to be on medication. When she says medication, she's talking about safe supply for the rest of their lives. It's a quote unquote, like she's got to go, that person. That's just horrible.
So we're going to have, and we already see it, we're going to have a generation, maybe two, perhaps three, of walking zombies, unemployable, continually, you know, accessing our services and putting a strain on them because we keep feeding them safe supply. I mean, this word stigma, I mean, you know, I think, I don't know, Darren, if you're old enough, but Giuseppe, I remember cigarette machines. They were everywhere in nightclubs. You know, you don't see a cigarette machine now. Cigarettes are all sold behind, you know, a counter with people with cancerous lesions on their face, or in their mouths. Same with drinking and driving. You know, I remember a day, you know, or talking to older people where, you know, it's, you know, got a few belts in you and let's drive. And there's a stigma around that, but there's not a stigma around hard use of drugs. Well, it's kind of it's an interesting narrative that I don't personally agree with. How can you live a productive, fruitful life? I mean, if we get 10 people off the street and we turn them into advocates on recovery and get them working down and downtown East Side, we can slowly turn things around. Those are going to be our saviors for people downtown.
And so, I mean, just to be clear, like, you know, your stance, has it shifted along with what we're seeing here? Were you once, or are you still are, you know, from the business owner's perspective, who's having to pay and suffer at the hands of criminal acts, to just see more police presence and back to punishment, or you know, like you described, you know, the lack of options. I mean, do you now connect the dots and also agree that, you know, these people need help and you know, they need treatment and not just a slap on the wrist or a punishment or jail time?
Well, there's silos of it. There's people with mental issues. We all know that. There's people with drug issues. There's people with mental and drug issues. And they're just some straight badass people out there.
Yeah. And
so instead of throwing them in one hopper like we seem to be doing, we need to go, okay, what do they do? What's their issue? And if they're continually a bad person, they need to go to jail. I mean, there are just people that just are not good human beings.
I agree.
Someone's an addict, and just like Grant, you're facing jail time where you have to go to rehab. Now he's an advocate. And
and that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, when, like I think I said a bit of it earlier in the show, when I first started working in this recovery world and working at Last Door about 15 years ago, 13 years ago maybe, there was clients when I was in treatment actually that were, you know, go to jail or go to rehab, and they chose to go to rehab. That really doesn't happen at all anymore. Like, we don't have anybody here in that regard. It's just not happening, or it's just not happening. And so there was a lot of people that found, you know, there was a few people that happened to that had a bad experience. I'll honor that. Some people did have a bad experience. A lot of people had a good experience, and all those people that had the good experiences, their stories were null and void. But you know, and so that doesn't happen anymore, and it's really unfortunate. I mean, it's just you know, people aren't finding recovery because they're being told by people that it doesn't work. They're being told that it's, the latest is it's white supremacy. It's,
Oh, for
it's
God's
just, it's
sakes.
absolutely
I mean, how many
insane.
people do you get at the recovery day in New Westminster? 40,000?
45,000. Let's get that other 5 in there.
Sorry, 45,000. So, there's nothing worse than a wasted life. I mean,
Yep.
some of these people could be, great productive human
Productive members of
beings.
society.
And
Yeah.
that's just the saddest thing for me, it's the saddest thing to see. And if you can help someone, then why not? But enabling that and continuing to feed the demon. I don't know if that's such a great thing for us.
I mean,
as a society.
Imagine an arrest not for simply time, or punishment time, but rather to be given a chance of being assessed as to what sort of needs need to be met. And I think it's almost like that's, I don't know, for me it's very obvious.
Sure.
But for people growing up where it was like in your generation, it was completely, I mean, I remember driving down Hastings, with my dad on the way to a hockey game as a kid, and his lack of experience, it was just, it was those people, and at the time it wasn't overwhelming.
No,
There was, the area. But then I remember growing up and seeing pictures of Hastings as the bustling street, back in the day, in the 40s or 50s, and
even the 70s when I used to go down there in the 70s.
I don't know. See, I don't know when it shifted, but I don't know if society, sort of created this. Well, this is where they go now, as long as they're here and not bothering me. And now, as we describe, potentially, could Davie become the next Hastings if this discussion isn't heard? And I wonder, as a member of the Vancouver business owners and a safety advocate for this, are the other owners and other people involved, are they black and white, like just get them out of my neighborhood, or is there a shift in? I say sometimes I think there's too much compassion going on, I think that's what it is.
You could be too compassionate. So let's just talk about Hastings Street for a second. So when I was a kid, so I'm 63, when I was a kid, I'd go down to Army and Navy, right. Wouldn't go too far, a little further east because I was young, but I would go with my mom, my dad, and go to the Only, which was owned by a Greek family, by the way, since 1912, but it's closed. And it was that part of Vancouver was, if you were a miner, if you were a lumberman, you're a fisherman, you come into town for the weekend, get a rooming house, go and party, go back up north. And it was for what we called in those days the working poor. And it just slowly changed. More money came in, and it turned into this what we see it today. And it's just sad to see people in that state, and we're really doing nothing about it. And don't think Vancouver is the only city. It's all up and down the West Coast.
Oh yeah.
San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Austin, Los Angeles. I'm not sure about San Diego. Venice Beach is really bad. And there.
So what can we do? What can we do? So we've got a few minutes left in the show.
Sure.
You as a business owner, you as a citizen of the city,
yeah.
Who votes, a new city council got voted in.
Right.
What can we do to help solve some of your problems? Who's just a guy trying to run a business in Vancouver?
Well, I mean, I think we touched on it, and I think recovery is the key. Holding people accountable for their actions, getting them, siloing them, and people who do commit crimes and they continue to do them and take advantage of the system, they need to be put away. There needs to be some type of sentence for them. But again, we have, as I said, we have these silos, and so we need to address them all individually, which we have the ability to do, and just make the streets safe again. I'd like to see more beat cops on the street. When you have beat cops on the street talking to the people that live on the street, to the business owners, they get a feel of what's happening. Police talk to themselves, they talk to, and there's this chat line that goes through. And so if something does happen, it maybe takes 2 or 3 people that the police can talk to find out who did it. That's what a beat cop used to be. And we used to have those. We've lost that.
Oh, you have no beat cops anymore?
I don't see them up and down the street. No. No, they said Kennedy Stewart said he was going to do it, but of course, he fell through on that promise. So,
and others,
and many others. It's just it's a sad state. Business people need to feel safe walking down the street. End of story. Like Granville Street as an example. I don't go down there. I can take care of myself. Why do I need to walk into the cauldron just to go and see?
And Granville Street was saving itself. I remember when I first moved here, like you could actually, like, the stores were open, stores were coming in, retail stores were popping up. And then just one day it's just like, and when I moved to Vancouver, that's when I was buying drugs. And I remember, like, that's where I bought my drugs, at the corner of this and the corner of that. Like I knew where to go, and then there was a time, and maybe I was in recovery and but I knew, you always know when you can buy drugs. We would go to meetings, on Davie Street, and I was just like, they've really cleaned this up. And now it's like worse than when I moved here. It's just like, what the heck is going on here? But like you say, you don't go down there because there's no accidentally walking into like a bad situation. It's just a bad situation.
It's a bad situation. So, I tell my daughter, if you're going to go with friends, preferably don't go. And Granville Street, just as a side note, Granville Street was one of the great streets in Vancouver. Cars could go there, cars could park there, buses. It had movie theaters, it had great restaurants. You go shopping. My parents would take me down, go see all sorts of movies there. And then in 1973, Art Phillips says, no, we're going to turn it into a mall. And since 1973 to now, Granville Street has been a debacle. Cars weren't allowed to go through. It's only buses. Then the previous city council decided to turn it into an entertainment district. And we see that what's happened. Now they put the SROs in there, and it's just fallen on hard times plus the drug issue. And Granville, and they want to reinvent Granville Street, but we'll see what happens there.
It's gonna be complicated.
It is
complicated. So your Facebook group is, I just put the note. The Facebook group is Vancouver Break-ins and Crime Collective. It's a place that you could join, have conversations. If you have any news to report, obviously, if you witness a crime or know anything about a crime, please call your police department.
Absolutely.
Or call the police department and do that. And you know what? Thanks for. Because you can just turn a blind eye and just, get your windows fixed, up your prices on your retail products, make the people pay, and just be quiet about it.
This is what happens, is that when crime gets bad, retail closes down and prices go up. So the local people that live here find it more expensive, are paying for it. And then if they have to take a bus, then the bus costs them more money and they have to travel outside of their neighborhoods. Hastings Street used to have all the services it needed to provide the people on their daily needs, like the West End. They're all closed up.
Yeah.
So they have to go outside the area and they have to pay more. So, and
then nothing can reopen. And so it becomes a congregation, for
decay of the inner cities.
Yeah.
And
look at what happened to the Imperial Theater a couple of days ago, the fire out front. I mean, that place has been I mean, any other world, that would be a historical building.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful inside. The history of the building, just the history alone.
Yep.
I mean, I love it in there. I think it's amazing. But I host a few events for those of you that know. I would never host an event in there
No.
simply because of the neighborhood. And then just watching it being closed down for years, and now a tent fire out front, which obviously caused damage on the building.
Yep.
There's no there's no like, this is
Just-
bad, like this
it's-
historical building just caught on fire, like it's just like,
my dad who's 97 this year, he said to me 30 or 40 years ago, Vancouver was going to be a place for the really, really rich and really, really poor.
yeah,
Welcome. It's already happening.
it's
Yeah.
This
happening.
is and here's an immigrant guy, okay, and did fairly well, but that's what's happening in Vancouver.
And everything that you described is like where these areas got away from a sense of community. And we can look at, there's too many people, or we're overpopulated, but I mean, and I think that separation, like us and them, just get them out of here, isn't of the problem. And although it has to be a part to play in a mindset when we're feeling unsafe and we're feeling vandalized and insecurity exists, like, yeah, get these people out of here, come protect me. But really, you're describing even like the police interacting, and you're describing, how the community takes care of the quote unquote vandal or criminal, that they're given a chance. They're given a chance, to either be given an opportunity to find some therapy for whatever the issue is, or be given punishment for the crime, the consequence that's directly related to that, and how that is a part of community, and the police have a role in that, giving the community a sense of safety, as well as knowing who all the people in the community are from top to bottom.
Correct. Yep. And then that creates a nice community, creates safety.
It
And
is.
hopefully
and it's
it
sad
can
to
come
see
back.
that, is what's being divided as we try to protect and give freedoms to the unfortunates, that are experiencing generational trauma, or abandonment, or whatever label we put on them that gives us the freedom to go, here, we won't take your freedom away, we'll just give you some more dope, and give you less consequences, and that's everything's
wrong.
going
Yeah.
up. Everything's going up, and shops are closing down, and that's when is somebody going to do what seems to be the most obvious?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure when that will happen.
But
Maybe not before I die. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, like we've always talked about, I mean, as far as this show's going, like I was just even reflecting over the last 8-9 years of just what changes have been made, and the conversations that we've had, and there's always seemingly an obvious solution that, like, us that are in it, that are experiencing it, like nobody's saying like, just get rid of them all. Like there's a level of compassion that exists that doesn't go over to the absolute ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's where we are.
Give them free dope and a instead of a cigarette machine, a heroin machine instead. Like, I don't know. It's sad that our government's not in the middle either, and
well, our government is fueled by the people that have created this, sadly, this kind of mess.
That's right.
And I think that's what's causing them to have a wee bit of a delay in implementing any of these programs, because they're getting diametrically opposed. So lack of leadership, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
I have, before we go, Giuseppe, if this is called a war, and if we had the same leaders that we have today back in World War II, we'd all be speaking German.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's the way I
There's
look at it.
That's the way you look at it. All right. Well, you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. Come to you live every Thursday, noon till 1 on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. Just trying to bring some reasonable sense to this chaotic life we're living in right now, and we just hope that people are given an opportunity to live their best life. And so we can all flourish and be the Canadians we want to be. Thanks a lot, John, for being on the show. You can go on Facebook and do the search Vancouver Break-ins and Crime Collective if you want to be part of it. John, thanks for being on the show. Darren, always great to see you. Don't forget, you can replay our shows, talkrecoveryradio.com, and all your favorite streaming devices are there that you can link to. And thank you for joining us. See you next Thursday.
Thanks.
Bye,
My pleasure.
everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.